So, Erica, I think we are live. If not, it's just you and I chatting. So that should be a lot of fun.
Sweet. Well,
Well,
as always,
I appreciate you taking the time. Happy Friday, by the way.
happy Friday. Thank you for asking me on.
Oh,
I'm excited.
it's my pleasure. I've been wanting to get you on for a while. I know you have your show tonight, which is also live. So I
Right.
know we're a little bit under the gun with time. And to be honest with you, we're just starting, and I feel like we're already out of time because I made the probably dumb decision to try and tackle Skinwalker Ranch with you and the Hessdalen Lights.
We can do it.
Well, hopefully, let's see what we can do. So let me first ask. Just kind of get an idea of your background. I mean, I know you've talked a bit about Skinwalker Ranch, but how did you get into the field as a whole, and then how did you get into Skinwalker Ranch?
Oh boy, I this has always been a part of my life. I mean, I remember being 6 years old and going to the school library and picking up a book and reading that and being just entranced by UFOs and the paranormal. And so I definitely was into that. And I look back now at my life and I had a series of experiences in my childhood and young adulthood that could be viewed as paranormal. But I've always loved it. In 2013, I had a series of sightings over the Salt Lake Valley. And I had a beautiful home that overlooked everything, 80 miles from Dugway, on the flight corridor for the international airport. And so we would sit out there every night, watch the sunset, mingle with friends. And on one particular night, I noticed something very unusual. And it was in the same place for upwards of 20 minutes and very low above the mountains. And then it appeared that something dropped out of the larger object and then circled it. And my friends and I were sitting there like, okay, this is quite unusual. What is that? I began, because of our proximity to Dugway and because I'm just a curious kind of gal, I started to really dive into this and learn what could be explained as aircraft lights, mundane objects. And then I also found that there were other sightings in the Salt Lake Valley at the same time period. People were capturing exactly what I was capturing on video. They were reporting it to New Fork. And I reached out to Peter Davenport, filed a report, spoke with him, and then started doing more digging. I became a field investigator for MUFON and then eventually the Utah State Director. So
That's awesome. That really is
yeah,
cool. So you've been involved for a little while now. Now, draw the line to Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, obviously you're in the area, right? Do I have that right? You're somewhat
I'm
close to it, or?
2.5 hours away.
So somewhat close. I mean, most of us are, states away, so we can't go boots on the ground. But how did you decide to say, okay, I'm going to go out and investigate Skinwalker Ranch?
Well, first of all, this is my home, and for me, when you hear about something like that, I want to know as much as I can. And also, with me becoming state director for Utah, it was very apparent to me that Utah was one of the only states where you weren't finding a lot of data. There weren't a lot of people that were filing case reports. And so I had to get online and learn things and then make connections. And I felt it was imperative as a researcher to start documenting some of the history, some of the sightings, to put things in a cohesive manner for others who wanted to try to research things. And so I quickly became interested in that. I have been monitoring and researching several people in the area, and I've been documenting all of this for over a decade. In one particular case, it's fascinating. I have 3 generations of a family. The grandmother unfortunately passed away, but I've been researching them and, like I said, documenting them for a long, long time. And that's important to have that history, to see a whole family being impacted in an area that is very close to Skinwalker Ranch. So it's my backyard, and that's I feel that I need to do the best for the people, not only in my state, but also as a researcher, to get good information out.
For those who aren't aware, can you just kind of give a brief rundown of what Skinwalker Ranch is?
So yeah, Skinwalker Ranch is in the Uinta Basin, and it is it's a hotbed of paranormal activity. If you don't know what it is, then I would, just take 5 minutes and get online, and you'll be able to find skinwalkerranch.org, which is a great website that offers the history, the people involved in the research project, some of the photos over the years, and it's a great website. Skinwalker Ranch was it was owned by the Shermans, and then it was purchased by Robert Bigelow from Bigelow Aerospace. And after the story broke, let me go back, Zach Van Eck, who was a reporter for the Deseret News, found out about the strange happenings in this area. There were cattle mutilations, ghostly sightings. The family was being terrorized. So he wrote a story in the Deseret News, of all things. Robert Bigelow found out about that, and then Bigelow approached the owners, bought the property, and then we now know that he was given money from the Pentagon to go in and conduct research of the property. So it's a really interesting area. Do I think it is the only area in the Uinta Basin that has activity like that? Absolutely not. And Junior Hicks and Dr. Frank Salisbury highlighted that very clearly in the Utah UFO Display, which is a great book.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we've had George Knapp on the show, Jeremy Corbell, Dr. John Alexander, and all of them touched on Skinwalker in different ways. It's accurate to say that, at least as the story goes, there's like everything going on at Skinwalker. UFOs, cryptozoology with strange animals, paranormal, poltergeist stuff. Is that your...
Absolutely.
So you agree with that? Okay.
Absolutely. And I had, a month ago, I had Chris Marks on, who was an investigator for Robert Bigelow. He's never gone on record doing an interview, and he lived at the ranch for 6 years and studied things and actually introduced some pretty bold ideas with regard to kind of prodding whatever it was that was on there. And so in the 2 interviews I did with him, that I think kind of blew the lid off of a few things. And I'm doing a 3rd interview next week with him that will, again, really set, it'll be great. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. Unfortunately, as Chris Marks mentioned in his first interview, there has been a lot of misinformation for the sake of the Hollywoodness, the dramatization and things. And so the local community gets, I think, the men in black, these cars coming around, these SUVs, and, there's a government conspiracy, and they're testing weapons and doing all of these things. And I think a lot of false things have been allowed to propagate in that community, and I think it's been at times very dangerous. So it's nice to be able to have somebody like Chris come forward, and then to get to clear the record, and then also to highlight the very strange occurrences that take place on the property.
Let me back up to the Bigelow days. Now, this is just from kind of an outsider point of view. Obviously, you're pretty entrenched in the story. What I took away from the very beginning, when this story really started surfacing, was Robert Bigelow buys the ranch, NIDS goes in, they do this massive investigation, they publish a book, then shortly thereafter, like, everything stops. At least that's what the story was. And if I'm inaccurate with that, let me know. But that's kind of what I took away, which I thought was really strange. Is that accurate? Is that kind of part of all of this real?
Well, I think it's important to, the book was published by Kelleher and Knapp. And so I'm not sure how much the other team members, or Bigelow for that matter, I'm sure Bigelow had a lot to say in it, but I'm not sure, how much control any party had over that, the release of the book and the information put forth. So it is, to me, the more I learn, I'm not sure, how heavily funded, or if the right type of research was taking place, the right types of equipment was being used, all of these things. I'm not sure, either how much time on the ground some of these researchers actually spent on the property. And so there are lots of, it's very interesting, I think, for me now, seeing what's taking place at the ranch with Adamantium, who now has the property. They have some very serious equipment. They're doing great work there, and so I think they've taken what Bigelow did, and I mean, it's blown up, so that'll be good. And they're not beholden to the government, so they can be more forthright with what they find out.
So with Chris Marks's interview with you, he worked for NIDS?
He worked for Bigelow Aerospace, so he was after, so he came in about 2012.
Okay.
From my recollection. So
and so he fully supports there is some weird stuff going on there.
He has seen probably some of the weirdest things take place on the ranch. He was talking about a Skinwalker sighting that he had, which was very profound. He was out at dusk walking the dogs and noticed a man standing on the ridge. And because of the heightened sense of security, because there were threats coming in from different people in the community who wanted to go hunt a Skinwalker and all of this stuff, he was calling out to this man. He was a little concerned, thought it was maybe somebody trespassing, and then this man appeared to double over and then kind of reach out, and he was concerned because it was a very odd maneuver to begin with, but then the man doubled in half, and he thought he was going to fall off the ledge, and in the next couple moments this figure transformed into a wolf. And so this was a very profound experience. This is something that was documented. I've seen the reports. I have all of Chris's reports in my office and things, and so it's very interesting. But it's the real deal.
And so you're saying he was there 2012? Obviously, that's well after the NIDS years.
Right.
And NIDS, for those who don't know that might be listening live, NIDS was a subsidiary of Bigelow Aerospace owned by Robert Bigelow, now defunct. Then it went into Bass, which ultimately led to the contract with, the OSAP, which we know is ATIP, and that whole debacle on whether or not it's one and the same or two different programs. But regardless, we do know for a fact that the Bigelow Aerospace and his subsidiary Bass got that contract. So 2012, so well after NIDS. When did Robert Bigelow sell the property, and why? Are you familiar with why?
Bigelow sold it back in, I believe, 2016, and I think that there are lots of thoughts on why he sold it. Some people say it's because he'd researched everything that he could. There was nothing else to gain. Others because the funding dried up. There are all sorts of things. I wish I specifically knew, but maybe I will ask Chris that next week.
Well, it's a big mystery, so that's why I was kind of curious if maybe you had figured out either from Chris or anyone else what the rumor is, because I would think, and let me first ask, so everything is back, right? So the rumor about the paranormal activity and the sightings and this and that, if it did stop, it's not stopped no more, right? I mean, it is back.
I don't think it ever stopped. I don't think it's stopped in that area. I mean, we've got reports from 50 years ago, 70 years ago. It's the common theme. So I don't know where that was started, but yeah, I could be wrong, but from what I recalled after the book was written, because people were saying, hey, let's go back there. Let's go back with other scientists and verify this. And the idea that was being floated by what I thought were the authors of the book, but I could be wrong, is that the activity had stopped, so people could not go back there. But again, I mean, maybe I just remembered it wrong, but I thought I recalled that that's what the story was. And then that might have been their story. I don't think that was the case, especially given what Chris Marks had said, and also what I've experienced. It's a very active location, and I'm not sure if there was a lot of activity.
So Bigelow sells the property. And even with Bigelow, the question goes twofold. With the current owner and Robert Bigelow, did they let, and did he let, people come in and do their own independent investigations?
With Bigelow or Adamantium?
Both.
I would absolutely say, from what I know, Bigelow wouldn't let people come in and do, that was it was his pretty serious project, and I think it's the same with Adamantium, even though I believe that they're much more open, but it's still it's a it's not a property that you want to go to in the middle of the night, that you want to sneak on. There are real dangers there, not only because of whatever this is, but because of the terrain. And so I think it's, and I have to just throw this in there. They've set up some pretty great instrumentation, and that if anything gets in the way of that, like an idiot stumbling through the sagebrush, then that's going to be a problem. So it's pretty controlled, and it has to be.
And what is adamantium? That you said that's the current owner. Is I'm guessing like a corporation, but what is it?
The Adamantium Holdings.
So it's just a group of investors, or
right?
It's so bizarre to me. And let me ask you if you have thoughts on this. I know you don't know his precise reason for selling, but someone like Robert Bigelow that has this immense interest in this field, it sounds like that's just like a playground for, and I would be in that camp, that if I had a property with his interest and my interest and your interest, would you ever sell it? I mean, he's not hard up for money unless there's something I don't know. So do you have an idea of what happened?
He has pretty diverse interests, and so that wasn't his sole focus. And when you have something that happens, if that's not a regular occurrence, you have to sit out there and wait for something to drop in your lap. And so for somebody of Bigelow's stature, that would be, you don't have enough time in the day to really wait for that to happen. And when the funding dries up, you're going to move into other areas.
Yeah.
So
let me talk about your investigation. Have you been out there?
Yes, I have.
On the property, around the property, both?
I've been on the property.
On the property. So your friend. So can I ask? You're friends with the owner, or?
I've signed a non-disclosure. So.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. But you've been on the property, so that's cool. What was it like? Did you experience anything once you were there?
You know what? It is. To me, it's some of the most beautiful landscape that I've ever seen. It was an incredible experience for me to see the bait pins, to see the old homestead, to be in the trailer that Bigelow and his team would stay in. It was a really wonderful opportunity. Did I have an experience or see something unusual? I did, and perhaps I can talk about that, but I have definitely been in that area many times and have had some things happen. So, and again, that will be, I'll be talking about that. I have a book coming out, hopefully by the end of the year, and I'll be a little bit more forthright.
No, I got you. Can I push a little bit, unless your NDA stops me from doing that, but can you talk a little bit about what you did experience?
I'll wait.
Oh, you're going to wait. All right.
I will. Yeah. Nice job pushing.
I was going to try. Can you at least tease us that if it was a UFO, poltergeist, a skinwalker?
UFO.
It was a UFO sighting. Very cool. Well, I can't wait to hear about that. Okay. Yeah. So how many times did you go out there?
So I was on the property for a few days, and I've been on the property once. But I've been in the area quite a few times. Like I said, I've been up there documenting and conducting interviews and doing other things. So when about a month ago, Chris Marks came out, and I got to visit with him, and we went up there and went to all of his local haunts. And I did a pretty extensive video interview with him, and then also went out to a place that is, it's about 15 miles away from the ranch with very similar terrain, and that was an experience in and of itself. So
yeah, and I asked Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp this as well, and I want to ask you, because you've been there. Is there something about the ranch, or is it the area?
I think it's the area.
So it's the area.
I do. There are, people, and Chris mentioned this, there are specific things on the property that are very intriguing. People feel that there are UFOs or things that seem to move into the mesa. And so certain people do feel that it's like the epicenter of things. I don't feel that that's the case, but maybe I'm wrong. So we'll see.
In your research, why is that? Like, are you leaning towards anything? Is there some kind of energy there? I mean, what is it about there, rather than California, where I am?
Well, how would you know? You just need to get
that's right.
your butt out there and look up. But I think it's there are places like this all over the world. And so tonight on my show, I'm having Greg Long, who wrote a book about Yakima, the Yakima Indian Reservation. And there are places, Piedmont, Missouri. There are places, a place that I went to do field research in southern Arizona, there, Norway. I mean, so there are hotspots like this, and people are experiencing the same types of phenomena. So this isn't anything new.
Yeah.
So I as beautiful and unique as that location is it unique because of the book that came out? Is it unique because of the hype it's received? Or, what is it? But all I know is in my research, like I said, there are places all over the world that have the same types of things going on. We just need to get people in there to document that.
When before you ever went, and obviously there's a lot of stories, and like you and with your interview with Chris Marks, which, by the way, recommend everybody to definitely listen to that because it's in your archive. UFOclassified.com is your website. You're on the air tonight, so everybody who's in the channel listening live right now, make sure you don't miss her show tonight. But before you ever went, and backing you up to just hearing the internet legend and lore, how did you approach it as a researcher? I mean, did you walk in there going, "This is it, I'm going to have a UFO sighting," or did you go, "This is ridiculous. There's going to be nothing here"? What were your thoughts like?
You always have to be grounded. You can't go in and expect things are going to miraculously happen. This isn't a controlled thing. I can't just go outside and rub two sticks together and expect that something will happen. And I also could understand, and I've definitely learned over the years that, a lot of times when things are put out, you can't trust everything that's being put forward. And so
whoa, with the UFO topic, are you sure about that?
I know that's like freaking newsflash right there.
If it's on the internet, Erica, it's true. If it's on the internet, it's gospel. So
clearly, especially on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, that's a given.
Yeah, totally. So, but for me, I made the mistake, and even when I entered the UFO field publicly, I thought that the information I was getting from some of these key people, I thought it was good information. I once held in high regard a lot of people that are leaders in the community and things, and now I know that there's been a lot of unfortunately a lot of garbage that's been put out there, whether to build a career or whether to disinform the public or whether somebody's just delusional and putting stuff out there. But I found some of that to be true with Skinwalker, like the legendary portal opening up with the creatures that came out and the gunfire battle that took place and things like that. And I mean, back when I first started, of course, you go through those things where, okay, was that true? Oh, this is like, secret, I'm hearing these things, and was there this mysterious battle, and
Mm-hmm.
and you learn and you grow and you make mistakes, and now I'm a little bit more grounded than I was back then. So
okay, now the you had said some of the story was Hollywoodized. Sadly, that happens with a lot of UFO related cases in this genre. They wind up in documentaries, and the stories are completely misrepresented. I don't want to put you on the spot, so you don't have to answer this. Jeremy Corbell is a friend of the show. He and I differ on certain things, on quite a few things, actually, but we try and keep in good standing. So I don't want to put you on the spot. But can I ask, are you referring to his documentary when you say Hollywoodized?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think that there have been lots of things, about the ranch where you're getting bits and pieces of things. And of course, you want to get YouTube hits, or you want to, sell movies or sell books or different things. And so you do get that, And I think that's been the case ever since Skinwalker Ranch hit the news.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things.
Since you've been there, do you feel that, because that's how, if people that are watching this live or downloading the podcast, if they're not learning about Skinwalker for the first time, I would venture to guess that they probably not only from the book, if they've been around for a long time, but probably most of them are going to say they saw the documentary. Did you see the documentary, Jeremy Corbell's documentary?
Yes, I did.
Did you feel that Skinwalker Ranch and the story as a whole was accurately represented?
I always think from my perspective, if I were to do something, it would be different. Corbell is a filmmaker and I'm not. And so we have differing styles as far as putting things out there. I think for me, I would have wanted to have more interviews with people and really get the whole surrounding area and get the history and things, and so that's what I would have done. But he made a documentary that was great and sold a lot of yeah.
All right, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. The reason why I asked it, and if you have any more thoughts on it, is a lot of people that are entering this field, they're seeing those news stories right now. They're seeing these documentaries, getting away from Skinwalker, even stuff like Bob Lazar, that's resurfacing after 30 years. There's a new generation of curious minds that are coming up that are seeing these stories. And the only thing that they're seeing are the YouTube videos and or documentaries like Jeremy, because that wasn't a YouTube video. He did a great job. I don't agree with 100% of how he did it, but he did a great job. He told a compelling story, and it keeps people, watching. But this is the only thing that this next generation is really doing. My dear friend, who I miss sorely, Stanton Friedman, they're not going to hear a lot of him going out there and saying, this is what I did on Bob Lazar. I called this person, I did this person, I did this person. And so you lose I don't want to say you lose a generation, but you lose. It's scary. Yeah. And so that's why I asked that. Do you feel that, and this is more of a broader question versus just Skinwalker, do you feel that the UFO field, just honing in on that, but in generality, is being accurately represented in the media, on television, and in documentaries on History Channel, Discovery Channel, and all those other ones?
You know what? I think that right now we are really living in a critical time. And it's sad to me, you mentioned Stanton Friedman. There are researchers who have contributed a great deal, and they're passing away. Their files are being either thrown in the trash or they're being sent overseas, or, all of these, we won't have access to this. And so it is very, very easy for certain people in factions, whether they're involved in perhaps the military or the religious or yada, 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 all these things. It's very easy for them to erase and rewrite history. And to me, that is incredibly concerning. Barry Greenwood and Jan Aldrich are two of my friends. Barry Greenwood has been my mentor. I wrote a book called Clear Intent that I would recommend absolutely. But he's also taught me how to archive and preserve history. And so here in Utah, I have one of the best archives in the Western United States because I don't want this to disappear. Yeah. And it's going to, and it is. And there's actually quite a large amount of money that is being spent to go in and sweep up the data and send it, who knows where. So this is pretty serious, and what we see put forward on YouTube and social media is, in my opinion, it's absolute garbage. And I think another thing that I want to stress is we have right now a lot of stuff coming out that this is the threat. And so it's a really great time to manipulate public perception, to scare the crap out of people, and to put in this control system, which I think is absolutely, it's alarming, and people need to get a grip, and people need to realize that, people that you're chatting with on social media or YouTube videos that you're seeing, that you
Whoa, I'm starting to lose you. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
There, you're back. Okay. I can edit that out on the podcast. Obviously, those that are watching live, you had faded out around where you were talking about social media. Your video got real slow. So if you could maybe back up a couple thoughts, if you remember where you were. But you were talking about social media, and then I lost you.
Right. Well, okay. So, and I'll expand on that. Social media has been interesting because I back when I got involved in this and I was working for MUFON and different things, I mean, I sat back and I watched different social media groups. I watched people with pseudonyms and different players get involved in it and manipulate public perception and do some really interesting things. And so I have to say that when you get involved and you're looking for a community to learn from, please don't do it on social media. There's really nothing of benefit to find there, and you waste a lot of time messing around with some of these Facebook groups and some of these online things, and they're manipulated. So we have to get over that. So there's a real, there's a danger in that, and I think that the best way to move forward is to do your own work and meet people organically and do things that way. So
that's why I've been excited to have you on the show, because you are a boots on the ground kind of girl, and I respect that. Where a lot of people will sit in their chairs and, sit in the basement and throw shots at people and insults and stuff. You're out there. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Do you feel that the field, and then we'll get into Hessdalen, but do you feel that the field is getting worse in that respect, better, or has it been this way for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's always been this way, but I think the unfortunate thing is with the internet and social media, you can create and shape the public sentiment within a matter of 3 minutes. And that never used to happen. And so that's a real danger in and of itself. But
any signs of it getting better, though?
It's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah.
I don't see it getting better. I see a lot of people that need to be given good information.
Yeah.
And sometimes for me out here, it's like spitting in the wind, because I've been very forthright about my distrust of certain organizations and certain things, and it's been a hard journey for me, but I feel that if more people are like-minded and actually use their brains and engage this and get off social media perhaps, and then really either do work on preserving history, get out in the community, start interviewing people, being more proactive, I think that will help a lot. It's gonna take a lot of work.
Yeah.
I can try to do it myself. I've been doing what I can, but
yeah, and you're doing a lot. You post a lot on social media. I assume that UFOclassified.com links over to your social media accounts, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Even though we were bashing social media, it is a good way.
I'm bad though. In fact, I think I don't even know when the last time I tweeted. It's just like, oh Lord. I try to be good about it, but there's only so much time in a day when you're out of business and you have responsibilities and you're trying to do.
Yeah, there's not enough hours in the day. I completely agree there. But what I want to do is definitely encourage people to go to your social media, because you've been posting a lot of very historical pieces of UFO documents and photos and books and all sorts of stuff. So you're not only talking the talk about preserving history, but you're actually doing it. Can I poke a little bit on that project of yours? I mean, are you looking to digitize the archive, or what exactly are you planning on doing? If I can poke and prod.
Oh, you're kind of good at that, I've noticed.
Yeah, that's what I do. No question is off limits on this show. NDAs be darned.
I know, exactly. So I have been, and I've been very blessed because I've had a few different people reach out to me and donate their archives. And one of those people is Gordon Moore, who worked for NICAP back in the 60s. And so luckily for me, Jan Aldrich met me in Los Angeles, Los Angeles, and he did the scanning of those archives, and then I will get all of the paper copies. And so working in conjunction with people like Jan Aldrich, with Barry Greenwood, they're very proficient at doing this. We can get all of those things available for the public, and I have a few other collections that are coming into my stratosphere. So I'm excited because I will get those out there. Absolutely. I believe they need to be shared with the public. And something that I want to throw out there too is there is, like I mentioned before, there is a big effort to sweep up archives. And what we need to really ask ourselves with this effort, how much of that is readily available? And there's pretty serious, so we should start asking some questions.
Do you find it the older material, the more historical, more valuable than today's ufology, so to speak? I mean, my personal opinion is yes, but I'm curious. Do you find that material more valuable?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think it's now. Back then, you know, like working with Gordon. It was so incredible because he was a researcher. Back in the 60s, there were people that they wore a suit, they got out there, they knew what they were doing, they knew how to write a report. And so that's a lost art. And like you mentioned, now you've got people who just sit behind their computers and, it's a demon, it's a blah, 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 you know. And so there's not a lot of...
Google search is boots on the ground for some, by the way. And that drives me nuts. Absolutely drives me nuts.
Well, and people are just, the thing that just blows me away is the fact that, you know, you can go to some of these meetings or things that a certain organization will hold, and they're talking about religious beliefs, or they're inserting their own political ideologies and all of these things. And I'm thinking, you know, okay, great. What does that have to do with doing research? Pretty much nothing, except for airing your, you know, point of view and you know, get out of my way. So there, and to go back and looking through my archives to see historically, there are always been like religious factions involved, or political people with political agendas involved in it, but never like it is now. And so you'll see on a lot of YouTube videos or movies that are coming out now, it's all about the demons, you know.
Yeah, and I want to see if we have time for that, because I want to pick your brain a little bit about the whole threat aspect, which is very popular. But let me talk a little bit about Hessdalen and see if we have a little bit of time for the threat at the end, because I'm fascinated by that whole concept of the threat, and obviously that is being very much, that thought process is being encouraged by places like To the Stars Academy with their show Unidentified. It was threat. So I want to jump to the Hessdalen Lights and your trip to Norway first, however. So let's shift gears away from Skinwalker and talk about your trip. You recently, in the last year, I think, went over to Norway.
2017.
Wow, time really flies.
I
We
know,
have kids,
so,
like, I blink and it's like 2 years later.
I know, it's scary.
My son just started kindergarten yesterday, so or Tuesday, I should say. But see, I don't even know what day of the week it is. But anyway, so I digress. But so 2017, you go over to Norway. Same with Skinwalker. If you could give everybody kind of a rundown, like what were you going for, and what are these mysterious lights?
So when I was state director for Utah MUFON, I began to notice that there were a lot of instances, a lot of reports of lights in the sky. And a lot of people wanted to dismiss those lights in the sky because they were not doing research and clearly didn't know what they were talking about. So every case that came in was a Chinese lantern or yada, 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 even though it behaved in ways that Chinese lanterns couldn't behave. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So I saw that there was a need for me to go outside and to look for people like Dr. Massimo Teodorani, who's an Italian astrophysicist who worked with Project Hessdalen, and Ted Rowe, who's the executive director of NARCAP, who has done, there was a great research paper that they had on their website called Project Sphere talking about anomalous light phenomena. So I gravitated towards people like that who had a better idea of what we were dealing with, and they weren't just dismissing one case. This was a whole the whole spectrum, decade after decade. Norway was important to me because back in the 80s, there was a town, and they were a little village. They were besieged by UFO sightings, and it's only a population of 120, and they were concerned. I mean, there were these objects that were hovering above their homes, and they wanted to know what it was, and so they turned to the media. The media did a news story about that. And then, unfortunately, like this typically tends to happen, but people kind of descended on the town, thousands and thousands of people. They trashed the place. The media ended up making fun of these people. And it was really it was very heartbreaking, I think, to the people in that community. So Erling Strand and a group of his colleagues over in Norway, they decided that they wanted to do something about that. And that's one of the reasons I just admire him so much. But they assembled a team. They went out there and they were there for a few weeks, and they documented over 100 sightings of different objects, which is very profound. They went back to Oxford College and they obtained funding. And now 35 plus years later, they have an incredible place where they've got different stations. The Blue Box is the main hub, but they've got different stations that continually monitor things, and they're working with different scientists in Europe and all over to get funding to keep the project going. They take twice a year, and this is the coolest thing, and I wish we could ever be this progressive in the United States, but they take twice a year students from the engineering college at Oxford University, and they take them out there and they send them up to different locations in the brutal conditions. They set up their tents, they set up equipment, and then they're continuously for 2 weeks monitoring the activity, and they're teaching these students how to use science to progressively look into the Hessdalen phenomena. And so it's an amazing thing, and we don't hear about it here. And I'm always trying to talk about it because I think it's positive. It's they're not afraid. They're doing research. Mm-hmm. And it's so there's not a need to manipulate anything like there is in the United States. And there's something very real. I again had an interesting experience there that was not UFO related, but people see things, and it's a very incredible place. They've identified after 35 plus years 4 different types of light phenomena that behaves as if it is intelligently controlled or an intelligence. And that's huge.
Yeah.
And nobody knows about it here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You don't, and I'm glad you brought it up, because that was one of my questions for you, is why don't we hear about something like this here?
I think because we're so busy focusing on Area 51 and storming the border and doing all of this, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. And I think some of that's by design. Let's throw up landmines here and there and distract people. We know that old song and dance, but it's
yeah, I mean, people who watch this show and listen to the podcast, they know my gripe. I mean, I gripe on the media a lot. Even though I work in television and have for 10 years on both sides of the camera, it's my biggest gripe, because we are kept away from good information, and then we're spoon-fed like this. I can't say the word, but it's just it's BS. A lot of it, not everything.
Give me the word.
Well, the word. Well, I'll let everybody fill in the blank, but. I that's what frustrates me more than anything, because something like this, so you go out there, again, a boots on the ground kind of girl, you go out there, investigate, you had an experience. Let me ask you about that. What did you see when you went out there?
I actually didn't see something. I had an experience that was picked up on tape.
Wow. So, are there NDAs involved, or can I push and prod and
You're
poke?
so naughty. No. But that's going to be in my book. I've got to you got to leave the crumbs. Stuff,
but right. Okay, but you definitely caught something. So the phenomena is reproducible. Meaning it's not like a once in a year kind of thing.
No.
How often, and how often are they seeing it?
You know what, they have on their website, projecthessdalen.org, they have a lot of great research papers and statistics, and then they're also they've got a live stream camera, and so you can go on there and really get more accurate information than I can give you. But it happens like it happens in the Uinta Basin or other places. It's happened for decades, mm-hmm. if not longer. And so it's really remarkable. But when I was there, I had the great opportunity to sit down and interview a fellow by the name of John Arvid, who was in his 80s at the time. And he talked about living in the valley his whole life and experiencing these things. And it was just one of the most profound moments of my life to sit here with just the salt of the earth, this incredible person that, any other day this never would have even entered his realm of reality.
Yeah.
But it happened. It happened to his sister. There's a great documentary that I would recommend everybody seeing. I think you can get it on YouTube. One thing I'll recommend on YouTube, The Portal. And that was about Hessdalen and the research project and some of the people that lived in the valley and their very significant sightings.
Is there a consensus on what you all are either experiencing or seeing or capturing on tape over there?
You know what? I mean, as far as what they believe it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they have again, they've got different research papers that they're putting together and different people that they're working with that are that have feelings about whether it's mundane, explainable, natural phenomena or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a great thing to look at that website.
Okay. But, and forgive me, so do they have an idea then of what this phenomena is though on the website, or there's just nothing?
I mean, it's unexplained. It is.
Okay.
They don't. If anybody had an idea of what it was, then we'd probably be out of a job.
No,
not that I'm getting paid. I can, you know what I mean?
No. There'd be no point to research it if they knew it.
Right.
I just meant, like, is the consensus in Norway that this is a extraterrestrial phenomena, or is it? No, that's
and that's the thing. I mean, when you're conducting a scientific project, you don't make leaps like that. And so that's, again, I question, where did the extraterrestrial hypothesis, when did that get inserted into our narrative here in America? Why?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, none of us know at the end of the day if we're dealing with extraterrestrials, if this is, ultra terrestrial. There's so many different things we could be dealing with, or Grandma Moses, back from the dead to haunt us. I mean, it's nobody knows, and we've got to stop labeling things and then jumping, 10 steps ahead before we actually have information. So no, they don't, and they wouldn't.
So they don't. Does Erica? Do you have an idea?
Dun dun dun. That's gonna be in my book.
You can't fall back on that. You don't have any.
It's kind of a good one.
No, nothing you can tell us about walking away where you go, okay, this is something that's otherworldly, or you walked away and you said, okay, there's got to be a top secret military base around here, that America's playground in Norway. Nothing.
You know what? It depends on the day. It depends on how one moment and feel strongly about something, and then the next day I have a differing opinion. And so do I think this is all extraterrestrial? No, I really don't at all. I mean, I believe that there are all sorts of aspects to this, and so I can't label it. I don't know. I wish I could, but I can't.
Are you?
But I know that I have dealt with something that is absolutely intelligent.
Are you going back to Norway?
That is my plan.
That's your plan?
So yeah, that's my plan. I love it there. It was such an amazing experience for me to stand out there in the 40-mile-an-hour winds, in a spot with Erling Strand, and to learn from him. It was just one of those moments that I will never forget. And then also to sit there and have very candid discussions with him about why he felt it was such an important undertaking for him. And he, to me, in my opinion, he's one of the most remarkable human beings that I've ever met. And, he as a scientist, this is what he feels. This is what science should be doing.
Yeah.
This is the way we should be addressing things. And it's a very wonderful, unbiased, refreshing approach that we should really look towards.
I've got you for about 12 minutes or so left, and I want to kind of shift back towards that threat narrative that we've touched upon a little bit. So obviously the consensus nowadays, and I say nowadays like in the last, year and a half or so, especially with the History Channel show, is, as you said, threat. It's a capital T threat. Do you agree with that or disagree?
Well, I would say show us show us more than one case that you can manipulate, because I have looked at hundreds, thousands of reports from people all over the world for decades, and there have been very, very few instances where they have actually been harmed. So, great. Again, I really truly feel that the threat is being used as a control system, as a way to manipulate people. So those are my thoughts on that, and it's unfortunate.
So you disagree with the threat analysis, then? You don't. And let me put it this way, because we talked about Skinwalker and talked about briefly your encounter. So I don't know if you were scared or what. Can I ask, were you scared after it?
No.
So you weren't scared?
No.
So, but some of the stories that have come out of Skinwalker, whether they be UFO or related cases, are fairly threatening in nature. If you just focus on the UFO stuff as a whole, you don't agree that there are threatening potentials behind this?
Well, they're threatening potentials of me walking across the street. I mean, it's all relative. Do I think that I think that we're more of a threat than anything to each other. I know that it is interesting to me because there have been specific reports with people, Tom Winterton, who is now involved at the ranch, Skinwalker Ranch, who was on my show. First interview, by the way, I think the only interview that he's done to date, which was really good. But he talked about, the moment in time when he was in a specific area and he was overcome with this sense of dread. Don't go any further. Stop. And in Yakima, and tonight Greg Long will talk about that again, you go into these specific places and something says stop. So is that something that's warning you to turn back because it's not good? I mean, I don't know. I mean, have people gotten hurt? Yes, they have. Why? I don't know. But have a lot of people had remarkable experiences and have walked away unscathed? Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
So we need to put it in perspective, and we need to, like I said, really understand that when people are putting out that kind of fear-based crap, that there's oftentimes is a bigger picture behind it. So.
Yeah, I think that the definitiveness of saying that it's a threat that some organizations and some researchers are doing is bad. But I think that it's more that we are all better served if they say it's potentially a threat. Because
right.
that I hate to say it, and those watching live are going to fall off their chairs, but I actually somewhat agree with TTSA's stance. I know that will come as a shock to everyone listening, but I actually don't 100% disagree with the threat narrative, because there are declassified cases that show that there is a technology here that we just simply can't explain, that they can do
right.
what they want, when they want, and where they want. And by definition, that's a national security threat. So that's
right.
why I wanted.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. And, when I look at NARCAP, I mentioned NARCAP, and they study pilot sightings, military and commercial pilot sightings. And there have been times where, yes, there is a threat to an aircraft. So, yeah, absolutely. Is it a threat because it is meant to be a threat? Is it a threat because we don't have the capability to interact? I mean, there's so many variables there, and I absolutely, as we should be concerned, we should be researching this and allocating funding to do so. Should we immediately jump to that threat?
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't agree with that. I do agree that it needs research, and we need to get funding and a good focus, a good perspective on it.
Yeah, well, I gotcha. Well, since I've got you a couple more minutes here, and for those that are listening live, if you are listening on the podcast, on the recorded version, make sure you don't miss out on future live broadcasts. We broadcast the interview portions on YouTube. Just go to theblackvault.com/live, and that will bump you to the channel. Subscribe to that. You'll see notifications for upcoming interviews, and then those interviews are then dumped onto the podcast. And so if you're listening on the recorded version, make sure that you go on and subscribe to the channel. For those that are listening live, questions in all caps. I put the notice out there in the chat room. I see a couple. Longtime listener, Stephen Padilla, asked, what does Erica think has been her most important contribution to ufology? So, Erica, What's your
That
most
is a
important
great
contribution?
question. I need to go meditate and pray. I think um, I my most important contribution, I think, just trying to get the truth out. I think, for me, my radio show and having the opportunity to interview some of these older people in the field and to preserve their memory, that has been the biggest honor of my life, because a lot of these people are going to be forgotten. And a lot of the people that I've interviewed have never wanted to go. They've been burned by the media and they've never wanted to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have their trust and to be able to get their voice out there, so hopefully future generations can remember that and learn from it, that to me has been, I think, my biggest contribution.
Very good. Mr. Blackspoon from the chat room, thoughts on the Wilson leak?
I think that is so not my bag, and I think there's a lot of stuff going on with that, and I just, yeah.
Okay, all right, this is where I'm going to pick, because the Black Vault Radio prides itself that no question is off limits, so I have to ask. Even though it's not your bag, I know just by social media interaction, you are friends with Dr. Eric Davis. He was the one that allegedly wrote the notes. Have you ever talked to Dr. Davis about the notes?
I haven't had an opportunity to speak with him lately, but...
Will you? On behalf of... He hates me. He does not like me at all. I can't figure out why. But he doesn't like me. But I think he likes you. So, from what I understand, he said no comment. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But I think
you are so putting me on the spot.
I'm just kidding. I totally am.
That coy grin. I've got your number.
That's why I do it live, so no one can back out. But no, with the Dr. Davis thing, all joking aside, it's an important issue, and I think that his no comment, from what I understand, he said no comment. But I kind of feel it's hearsay because I haven't seen him say it, but I could be wrong on that. All I know is like other people have said, "Oh, Dr. Davis said no comment." But I'd love to go to the source, and
right.
So yeah, if you need a future
I will
show
absolutely
idea,
ask him back on the show and see if I
do it live and make sure he doesn't back out.
Will you teach me some like little tools of the trade, putting people on the spot?
Putting on the spot. That's what I do best. Stuart Cutts, what do you think is the military interest in Skinwalker? And I'm glad you brought that up, Stuart.
I'm not sure if there is a military interest now. I think that there have been a lot of people saying that unfortunately this could be some of the lore that there is, that the military this is a top secret testing facility. And things like that. I think a lot of these myths that this is, I certainly didn't see that. I don't think that's the case. So I don't know. Like I said, the funding dried up. Bigelow isn't there anymore.
Yeah, and that's why I was glad that Stuart brought it up, because I've always struggled with this part of the story. Could very well be true. I've just struggled on it. So let me ask you, as somebody who's better in touch with all of the Skinwalker Ranch and the details and stuff, how is it that Bigelow, as a government contract, because we know for a fact, it's established, documented fact, that he got this contract with the Defense Intelligence Agency under OSAP. The rumor, however, is that it involved Skinwalker Ranch. Is there, and I mean no sarcasm with this, I'm genuinely trying to figure this out. Is there any reason why that even makes sense? Because if you look at the bid, what they call the bid solicitation for OSAP, it has like nothing to do with anything remotely close to being like that would involve Skinwalker Ranch or a location like Skinwalker Ranch. And the DIA told me in an official statement, for anybody who likes official statements nowadays, said they had no idea what people were talking about with a ranch in Utah. Can I ask genuinely, like, what is that connection? Like, how did Bigelow justify taking the OSAP money and saying we're going to go to Skinwalker?
I think it would be like asking the people over in Norway, why should you get funding to go to an active location and try to study a place. I mean, that if you're perceiving something as a threat, if to national security, then you're going to go to an active location and conduct research. So that would make sense to me.
That's fair, but what I'm saying is that what they put out for bid, meaning the DIA, let's just say all the stories are true about Bigelow, and after talking to you, it sounds like a lot of them are, not everything. But if it's an active area and UFOs are being seen and so on and so forth, the OSAP contract really kind of didn't touch at all on that. And let me just reinforce that point. If a United States military agency, this is kind of like the military's CIA, which is the DIA, if those listening or watching aren't familiar, if they figure out that in the middle of Utah, or wherever it is in Utah, but in Utah, in the middle of the United States, there is an active location that potentially could have a foreign threat, whatever foreign means, I would think that multiple agencies would be all over that, but it couldn't be the DIA.
But I mean, and so, here's another thing to throw out there. I mean, you've got top secret military installations that are having sighting. I mean, things are being shut down. There are, I think that, as we've seen from a couple of the videos that have been recently released, there are threats over military installations. So to me, that would be more of an area of focus than maybe Skinwalker Ranch, especially because it's, it's defending us.
Yeah.
And so and also, like I said, I think that the powers that be probably are adept enough to know that that is not the only place. And now, unfortunately, because that place has become such a three-ring circus, there are people that, camp out there. There are people that are, it wouldn't be my first location if I was involved in the government to conduct research now. But then I want to throw something out there too, because we also know that Bigelow received funding, and some of that funding apparently went for him to buy up the MUFON database.
Yeah, that's another show in itself. I honestly think
we need to have that show.
Mark my words here, on August 16th, 2019, it may take a couple years. I think that will come back and bite more than one person and more than one organization. That, to me, if it traces back and the finances went into sharing personal information from a nonprofit to a government database, I'm sorry, guys, that's going to be really bad. But that is a different show in itself. I don't want to take up the rest of your day because I know that you have a show to prepare for. So in closing, I know that everybody can reach you at www.ufoclassified.com. What time does your show start tonight?
So my show starts at 5 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So it's coming up pretty quick, but it'll...
Well, I will let you go for that, but I really do appreciate your time, Erica. I know I picked your brain a little bit. You've got a lot of, a lot of stuff going on, so I appreciate you, entertaining my rather picky questions. So I do appreciate your time.
And I can't wait to get you on the show because turnabout's fair play.
No, I can't do it. I'm all booked up. Sorry about that.
All right, whatever.
Well, thank you again, Erica, and thank you all who are listening live. Again, if you're listening on the podcast, go to www.theblackvault.com/live. That will bounce you to the channel. If you're not subscribed already, do so. You'll get notified of all of the upcoming interviews that are streamed live, and then they get transformed and put into the podcast. So thank you all for listening. This is John Greenwald Jr. signing off. We'll see you next time.